for the hardest-hitting show in talk radio. The true progressive voice since 2012. This is Southpaws.
And welcome to Southpaws on the Pacifica Radio Network. We are the leaders of the revolution. My name is Darren Gibson, and I am your co-host.
My name is Jack Prince, your fellow co-host.
Well, we've got quite a bit to talk about today, as we always do. We're going to talk a little coronavirus. We're going to talk some politics, and we do have a Hammer Time winner this week. You're going to really enjoy the audio. Jack, you haven't heard this yet, so I know you're going to enjoy it. I have a feeling that the listeners out there are really going to lose their mind over this. Yeah. Well,
it is amazing.
Yeah, it certainly is. Well, before we start out, let me remind you that you can follow us on social media by going to facebook.com/Southpaws Radio Show. You can follow us on Twitter at Southpaws Radio. You can become a patron of the show by going to patreon.com/Southpaws Radio. You can listen to the show anytime you like at Spreaker.com. Do a search for Southpaws there. You can find us at the iTunes Store under Podcasts. Just do a search for Southpaws. Once you've found our logo, you've found us. Links to our podcast go to our Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube accounts. If you want to listen to YouTube, go to youtube.com and do a search for Southpaws Radio there. And, of course, you can listen to us on great Pacifica stations, including KCEI-FM in Taos, New Mexico, KZGM in Kabul, Missouri, and Global Community Radio Channel 1. We're on every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Make sure you check us out there. Well, we've got so much to cover today, Jack. I don't even know where to begin other than the coronavirus is starting to rage again, and people still don't get it.
I know it. Or they do get it. The virus, I mean.
Well, they get the virus. They don't understand that you need to social distance, you need to wear a mask to keep from getting this.
Yeah, it's raging. Mm-hmm. You know, talking about superlatives, I just was talking to you about Dan Rather's quote that the coronavirus is at record numbers right now. You know, it's raging. It's out of control. And as Dan said, where the hell is the federal government? Where the hell is our national leadership? The national president was trying to get to the Supreme Court yesterday to end Obamacare. That's his answer. Mm-hmm. You know, I just, the amount of dereliction that this administration has done previously, as horrendous as it was not killing people directly. We are now at 126,797. And that might as well be a statistic on how many championships for curling have come out of Canada. It means nothing to people.
Yeah, 126,797. We are recording on Friday, June 26th, 2020. So by the time you hear this, that number will probably change and will definitely go up. But, Jack, I left a message for you yesterday, and I know we talked about it before we started recording today. Tom Hartman on his show yesterday, and by the way, you can hear Tom Hartman on many Pacifica radio stations across the country. Please check him out.
Definitely.
Tom Hartman was talking about the different methods that countries have used to tamp down the coronavirus. He mentioned the U.S., he mentioned Europe, then he mentioned Czechoslovakia, and then he very specifically mentioned Austria. In Austria, according to Tom Hartman, the only thing that the Austrian government said was you need to wear a mask when you go out in public anywhere you go. You leave your home, you put a mask on. If you don't, you're going to get a fine and a ticket. Just the act of wearing a face mask, they have destroyed the curve in Austria. They haven't flattened it. They've destroyed it.
Yep.
Yet we have idiots, mostly across the South, as Jim Gerner, our former co-host, used to call them the slave states, that are saying, well, personal freedom. You can't force us to wear a mask. It's unconstitutional. Well, wrong. It's not unconstitutional. There's a precedent for this. Public health overrides your personal freedoms. Period. End of story. Do your research, folks. Go back to the Spanish flu, which is wrongly named. It was the influenza pandemic of 1918 that lasted for 2 years because those people back then also didn't want to wear a mask.
Yeah, I saw an amazing piece of really encouraging news concerning the virus. Scientists have discovered a way to reduce your chances of catching the virus by 70%. And it's been proven, and it's been produced. It's called a small piece of cloth that you put over the front of your face. That's the answer. You mentioned countries who have beaten this. Mm-hmm. It's not bleach. It's not praying and giving money to an evangelical pastor. It is a little piece of cloth that is not offensive. It does not in any way impede your ability to breathe. And it is a manifestation of your concern and responsibility directed toward other people.
Exactly. Well, but if I wear a mask, I'm just breathing in carbon dioxide. I'm going to choke myself to death. Really? Yeah. The bullshit. That's not true, folks. Yeah. Not true whatsoever. Please. Look at science and stop believing your uncle next door to you that watches Fox Propaganda Channel.
Well, I'll tell you, I know you've got this, Darren, a piece that's from the Huffington Post, and before I'd have you please read some of those quotes from some of these people who think carbon dioxide comes from that mask. This is from Florida, and I don't know what there is about, you talk about draining a swamp. Maybe that's because Florida has so many swamps. I don't know. But it's incredible. People stormed, I think, Palm Beach it was, the township meeting.
Yeah, I've actually got it right here, Jack. This is Joseph.
Before you read that, there's one quote that just out of many that are absolutely over the top, where they're telling the administrators there that, and this is a quote, every one of you that's obeying the devil's law, you're going to be arrested, and you will be arrested for crimes against humanity. Yeah. Then they wave the Bible. Then they make threats that this is really communist takeover. I mean, they're flat Earth people. These are Trump's brown shirts. These are the morons, really, that ultimately provide the wind under his wings. Well, the lowest group of idiots is his base.
Well, Jack, one of the early signs of fascism is the attacking of intellectualism. Yeah.
Replacement with superstition, faith, threats. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
We've got people being hung in the open in high school parking lots, black victims across the South. Mm-hmm. We've got right-wing idiots going out with automatic weapons, shooting innocent protesters down in Seattle. How are we not in this is the Hollywood's version of fascism we're seeing right now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Trump was a TV star, if you want to call it a star. Oh, God. Yeah, let me get to this story. This is Josephine Harvey writing for the Huffington Post. This is dated June 24th. As Palm Beach County, Florida battles an alarming spike in coronavirus cases, some speakers at a heated public hearing attacked county commissioners as communist dictators who follow the devil's laws as they prepared to vote on a mandate for wearing face masks in public.
Yow.
During public comments before the unanimous vote in favor of the mask requirement on Tuesday, a majority of speakers opposed the move, according to local television news station WPTV. Some of those speakers, as the Daily Beast reports, denied that masks were effective against spreading COVID-19 and accused officials of playing God, violating the Constitution and threatening freedom and lives by imposing the measure. One speaker threatened to perform a citizen's arrest on the officials for going, quote, against the freedom of choice. The woman declared, quote, "Every single one of you that's obeying the devil's laws are going to be arrested, and you are going to be arrested for crimes against humanity. Every single one of you has a smirk behind that little mask, but every single one of you are going to get punished by God. You cannot escape God, not even with the mask or 6 feet." End of quote. You've got to be kidding me.
No. She's indicative.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Anti-science, science-denying idiot.
Anybody that stupid is a threat.
Yeah.
I mean, really. My dad said never, ever argue with a crazy person. And these people might as well be out on leave from insanity because they're likely to do anything. They have the motivation of helping God. That's the worst possible motive.
Yeah.
When they start talking about God's going to get you, that means they're going to do it for them.
Mm-hmm. Oh, if you make me wear a mask, God's going to get ya. Really. One more time. Cuckoo, cuckoo. Nutty. Nuttier than a fruitcake. These are people that need to be locked up in a mental asylum.
And if you looked at that article in the back, they had the big blue banner for Trump. They're all hiding behind.
Well, of course they do. He's their leader. It's idiots being led by idiots. Let me continue the story here. Another woman told commissioners, quote, "I want to know who's getting paid off and where is the mandate coming from." She continued, quote, "Well, guess what? The riots are spreading too, and what the hell are we going to do about that? We're going to arrest patriots for not wearing a mask? That's what you want?" And I say, Trump 2020, end of quote. Oh, please, let me get the cuckoo back up and going here, because he's going to be working overtime today. Unbelievable.
Well, these rabid dogs, they've got it out now. Really, they're freedom fighters. Because they're fighting for freedom by not wearing that mask.
Oh, man.
And these are the same mental midgets that we have heard speak at the Allendale Township meeting this week over a Confederate, actually soldiers standing with a Confederate flag over his shoulder in Alabama-dale, as I call it. And they had a meeting.
Yeah, Alabama.
And, of course, the director of Allendale Township, who also is on the executive board of the Republican Party in Ottawa County, which Ottawa County is, let's face it, it's the armpit of the state. It's the most Republican county. I don't know what the percentage was that voted for Trump in the high 80s. So his answer was, well, he's not going to take the statue down. He's going to open up the doors to a township meeting, which is real smartness virus, epidemic virus. So what would you think showed up? The majority of people were there saying, we don't know history. We ain't going to know history if we take down these beautiful statues. The sister of the woman, who made the statue and 8 or 9 other statues of American heroes in 1998, this was made, said that she would be crying if she was alive to know that one of her statues she made with her own hands is being torn down.
Oh.
I would have to say that the statues of our enemies, I think you could look around the country for statues of Japanese soldiers from World War II, or German soldiers, or Spanish-American soldiers.
Where's that Hitler statue that we talked about last week on the show?
Right.
You don't see Hitler statues.
Right. Christians are big on history, right? That you go back and tell you this happened, talking snakes and everything. It's all historical, and it all had an impact on us. I don't see, and of course, the greatest battle of all time is the battle between good and evil, represented by God on one side and, of course, the devil on the other side. I haven't seen many statues of Satan around Allendale. Have you?
Not really.
Really, they won't allow that for whatever reason. It is ludicrous that an intelligent man like this township supervisor said this represents a pivotal moment in our history. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a pivotal moment, like the time that we were invaded by foreign countries. We don't have their soldiers portrayed anywhere, or their leaders. Not Chiang Kai-shek, not Hitler, not anybody. So they have no ground except they gather together, they bring up a fervor like these people in Florida you read about, and they have Hannity, and they have
Rush Limbaugh.
Fox News. Yeah, and that's the world that just generates an hysteria. No logic, no reason, and I'm afraid that storm is going to spread, Darren. I am terrified of the ramifications of these idiots out there.
Yeah. Let me remind folks about Allendale, Michigan. We talked about it on the show last week about the statue, and one of our longtime listeners reached out to me and said, even 40 years ago, he saw at least one home in Allendale that had the black lawn jockey statues.
Yeah.
So right there it is, folks.
Yep.
Hotbed of racism. And I went to college in Allendale.
Mm-hmm.
And those people, I tell you what, the students are fine. It's the people that live there are way out in right field. Notice I said right field because they're conservatives.
They are.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a block. It's a complete saturation. I think that Shaun King's words this week are indicative of what a cultural revolution looks like. Mm-hmm. And as impervious as Allendale is, they can't refuse this. He said that even the white pictures of Jesus, the pictures of a white Jesus and monuments and murals, etc., need to be taken down.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, where do you stop? I'm in agreement with that. That's how deeply rooted the system is.
Yeah.
You got a guy that looks kind of like, I don't know, George C. Scott in Italy with his finger out, right? And it's God.
Yeah.
He's a white guy with a pot belly. You remember Malcolm's his initial debate that started a life of, as he said, taking a hot iron of truth and sticking up white society's nose. That started over the debate about what color Jesus would be. If he was real, he would have had to have been dark-skinned. And now as King, who, by the way, is getting death threats,
Yeah, Shaun
Matter of
King.
fact, former police officers were caught plotting to kill.
Exactly.
Shaun King.
In a private Facebook group.
Yeah. Because he's going down a rabbit hole. He's going down as deep as it's deeply ingrained in our society. Mm-hmm. God is white. Jesus is white. White is right. Look in the dictionary, Malcolm said. Look at the definition of black. Mysterious, evil, etc., etc. It's deeper than you can possibly imagine. And now that we're starting to take these Confederate flags down and statues, it's becoming clear. We're surrounded with it.
Yeah. And
I'll be there 1:00 on tomorrow in Allendale.
Saturday.
Yeah, I'll make some recordings for our show here.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Since we've been talking about race here, let's move into NASCAR and the whole Bubba Wallace. Was it a noose? Was it just a rope? No, I saw the pictures. That's a noose. Don't BS me with that. Oh, it's not a noose. It's been there for months. I don't care if it's been there for months. I don't care if it's been there for 5 seconds.
Not going to dodge the issue.
Noose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the a-hole down in Michigan who had the mask on. It was a Confederate flag. Remember? What was he, a senator?
Yeah, he was a state senator. He's thank God he's term limited.
Yeah, so that's not a Confederate mask.
From Ida, Michigan. I have a high school friend lives in Ida, Michigan with his wife. I hope he's embarrassed to live down there.
But that was a noose. You're absolutely right. No question. Don't even listen to that person.
Yep.
Crap.
Yep. I want to get back to the Florida story here real quick here. Continuing again, this is the Huffington Post reporting here. COVID-19 cases in the county have surged since it entered the first phase of Florida's reopening plan on May 11th. That is according to Dr. Alina Alonso, who is the director of the Florida Department of Health in Palm Beach County. Quote, "Our numbers are going in the wrong direction," end of quote. She reminded attendees that masks are intended to protect both themselves and others. People are entitled to their rights, she said, but these public health laws are intended for people's safety. Vice Mayor Robert Weinroth, who strongly opposed a mask mandate previously, said the surge in cases has changed his mind. Quote, I hate the idea of talking about mandatory face coverings. It goes against my grain, but the numbers we saw this week were just out of this world. End of quote. Now listen to this quote. One man who identified himself as Butch Diaz and called himself an American patriot said that he would die for the Constitution, which he said commissioners were failing to uphold. Let me read you this quote. You probably already have your orders already taken care of. You don't really care. You could have at least faked it. You do not care about we the people. It's pathetic. It breaks my heart because I would die for that flag. I would die for this country and I would die for the Constitution. End of quote. And it just goes on from there. Another one. Another speaker. She said that she has a medical condition that prevents her from wearing a mask. She says she didn't believe there was any evidence that masks prevent the spread of COVID-19. Here's what she said. Quote, you're not God. You're removing our freedoms and stomping on our constitutional rights by these communist dictatorship orders. If you do vote to mandate masks in the workplace and public schools and stores, the death of many will be on your hands. End of quote. The hearing erupted into chaos after the vote. Some in the audience screamed insults and threats at the commissioners. So from Thursday, masks will be required in public places in Palm Beach County.
Great. Should be.
But that's not the only place. Jack, you sent me this story. This is Erica Stapleton writing for KPNX Television out of Phoenix. There were two main camps at a rally in Scottsdale Wednesday, people against wearing masks and people against being told to wear masks. Scottsdale City Councilman Guy Phillips said, quote, I don't think people need to be forced into doing something. People would have done it anyway had we had the education first. End of quote. Let me stop there. Jack, do you believe that? Do you think people will do the right thing given the choice?
I don't know why I would.
Yeah.
Certainly not based on America's precedents.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, we have a record of doing the wrong thing, and we also have a history of half of the country beneath the Mason-Dixon line, enslaving people, making them into property. Why would we trust people to make the right decision? We have leaders who we hope have wisdom, insight, and the ability to make correct decisions that help us. Mm-hmm. Right now, Darren, is a perfect moment to place a bet. You're up north, I'm here in Grand Rapids. How many Americans would say, leave American opinion alone right now? It will do the right thing in regard to coronavirus. I'm saying maybe 35, 40%. The same Confederate flag waving morons that you're quoting right there think that their free choice and their will be used appropriately to curb this. Mm-hmm. Do you know how laughable that would be in the other countries of the United States to let these Bible thumpers down there take control of this of the leadership in this? But that's what Trump is doing. Like Rather said, there is no leadership. Mm-hmm. They minimized Fauci. They've taken away the funding from Fauci. Of course, they've stopped their daily shows about it. Mm-hmm. Trying to bury this issue, but what's being buried are 127,000 Americans growing
and
to 250,000 by September. And we don't even have a spotlight on it, but we have citizens running around saying, we'll do the right things.
Mm-hmm. Let me continue the story here. Phillips organized the rally, which had a few hundred people turn out. Most of his supporters were not wearing masks. Phillips says he's not anti-mask, but he is against the mandate and thinks people should make their own choices. Scottsdale is one of many Arizona cities that have rules in place about wearing masks in public places like restaurants, stores, gyms, even gatherings like the rally where you can't social distance as an effort to stop the spread of COVID-19. Scottsdale Mayor Jim Lane put out the mandate proclamation less than a week ago after Governor Doug Ducey gave local governments the green light to set their own rules. And right there's the problem. You don't have leadership at the top level in the state government taking hold of this.
Exactly.
So you're going to have a patchwork throughout the state of, well, you have to wear a mask here. Oh, you don't have to wear them here, though. And it's ridiculous. One standard and one standard only. And it's not that people are making their own choices. That's the problem. The problem is those choices affect other people.
Yeah. It's the same offspring of the Confederacy that said, no, we have the right, give us our states' rights to put people in chains and sell their kids as property. We have that right of choice. Mm-hmm. No, you don't, because it's inhumane. And so we interceded. We went down there and said, you're going to set them free, and lost hundreds of thousands of people promoting that. They still won't buy that either, and they hide behind their free choice crap.
Yep.
By the way, they also have a religious belief. They run around and think, oh, we got a free choice. God gave us a free choice. Free will.
Yeah.
As we've said, Darren, over and over again, they're free to be dumb.
Yep, freedom. Speaking,
they do that well. They do that to extremes.
Jack, you were asking a little bit ago about where's the government. I can tell you what the government's doing. I have this story. This is Rich Gardella and D'Artanaro Clark writing for NBC News. This is dated June 25th. You want to find out about government waste? Right here it is, folks. More than 1 million Americans who had died received COVID-19 stimulus payments totaling $1.4 billion, according to a government watchdog in a report to Congress released Thursday. Now just think about that. $1.4 billion sent to over 1 million dead people.
I'm saying we're worried about voter fraud. Our own government can't keep the mailing list down to the correct people. It's incredible.
Yeah, unreal.
What was the total sum of that money?
$1.4 billion with a B dollars. Yeah, let me continue. The finding is part of a sweeping review of the federal government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic by the Government Accountability Office, an independent, nonpartisan congressional agency. The report paints a clearer picture of what critics called a muddled rollout by the Internal Revenue Service and the Treasury Department of more than 160 million payments worth $269 billion. Congress passed a massive $2 trillion stimulus package called the CARES Act in March to soften the economic blow of the coronavirus pandemic for American workers and businesses. Eligible Americans received checks called economic impact payments based on their 2018 or 2019 income tax returns or by filling out a simple tax return. Individuals making up to $75,000 a year received checks for $1,200. Couples making up to $150,000 and filing a joint tax return received $2,400 with an additional $500 per qualifying child. The payments decreased for those making more than $75,000 with an income cap of $99,000 per individual or $198,000 for couples. GAO's report said Treasury officials said that to meet the CARES Act mandate to deliver payments as rapidly as possible, Treasury and the IRS sent out the first 3 batches of payments using previous operational policies and procedures for stimulus payments, quote, which did not include using Social Security Administration death records as a filter to halt payments to decedents, end of quote. So let me stop there. So they can filter this through their computer and say, oh, well, the person that has this Social Security number has been reported deceased. Don't send a payment. They had the technology and didn't use it because Trump was pushing. Let's get that money out there. Let's make sure they get that wonderful money so that they come and vote for me in November.
Yeah.
Remember?
Name on the letter.
Yeah, exactly. Let me continue the story here. GAO also reported that IRS's legal counsel had, quote, determined that the IRS did not have the legal authority to deny payments to those who filed a return for 2019, even if they were deceased at the time of payment, end of quote, and had advised applying the same rules to recipients who had filed a 2018 return. So, once again, even if they did find them deceased, you still got to send them a payment. Like a dead person's going to spend money. Come on. Well, then again, Trump supporters are literally zombies.
Yeah.
Walking around brain dead.
That's what your federal government is doing. And, of course, going to places like a church in, where was that, Phoenix, where they had a rally of Trumpers. And we were given confidence, though, Darren, not to worry, because they had a machine. You know, these bug killers outside of Dairy Queens and so forth, it's like a little blue light.
Yeah.
And the mosquito goes in and bzz.
Yeah, well, bug zappers.
They had one of those zappers there that killed coronavirus. You could hear them as the little virus got zapped. You could just hear bzz, 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 bzz. I'm exaggerating to some degree, but not. They claimed they had that, so it was safe. It was a total canard. No truth in that.
Mm-hmm.
Then Trump goes out there, instead of giving any leadership on the virus, makes fun of people with the masks. His own people, 6 of his own bodyguards, are quarantined now because a number of them have come down with. And by the way, did you see Chomsky? This came back in my memory. Chomsky came out now. And folks, Noam Chomsky is the Bible. He is the absolute, I don't care how many people are saying that he's losing it in his 80s. He is the bedrock of progressive thought. He is the absolute Bible. Mm. And when he speaks, he's like E.F. Hutton. He said, Trump is, and this is the thing that's absolutely shocking, undeniably the worst criminal in history. Now, I know superlatives get thrown around a lot, and usually it's thrown around by people that have a lack of vocabulary and they have to use a superlative. Who manifests that more than anybody else? Donald J. Trump does. Really great, big, fantastic, really, on and on. For Chomsky to say he's the worst criminal in history is staggering. Absolutely staggering. Read the article. It goes on from that headline, from that moniker, to explain how he could say that, and nobody can deny it. And we're hanging now with the possibility of him being defeated in just a matter of months. As the virus goes up, the numbers go up. As the wave of unemployment checks start to come through and rents are missed, as the stock market keeps dropping, 800 points just yesterday? I don't know what it's doing
700,
today.
yeah.
That worst criminal in history, our future depends on him out. It's a bleak prospect with him not being removed.
Exactly. Let me continue the story here. There was an initial backlog when the IRS began sending the first round of payments, and relatives of dead Americans all over the country said they received coronavirus relief payments on the behalf of a loved one. Families initially believed they could keep the payments, but the IRS updated its guidance in May to say the people who have died do not qualify for the coronavirus relief payments and, quote, should be returned to the IRS, end of quote. The GAO said in its report that the IRS does not currently have a plan in place to notify ineligible recipients, which includes the relatives of the almost 1.1 million deceased Americans who received a payment as of April 30th. The watchdog agency said the IRS should consider cost-effective options for notifying ineligible recipients on how to return payments, which the IRS agreed to do. Yeah. The IRS and Treasury departments did not immediately provide comment to NBC News. Treasury and IRS representatives referred NBC News to responses they provided in the GAO report. Donald Trump indicated earlier this week that he's open to another round of very generous stimulus payments as the U.S. economy continues to reel from the coronavirus pandemic. Once again, there's one of those superlatives.
Yep, very generous.
You know, are you a country music fan at all, Jack?
Yeah, there's some songs I like.
You ever hear Marty Stewart?
Yeah, I know he is, yeah.
Yeah, you know the name of his band, right?
Help me.
The Fabulous Superlatives.
That's Trump's band, the Fabulous Superlatives.
Yeah, well, Marty was a big fan of Johnny Cash. He was actually Johnny Cash's son-in-law at one point. He's now married to Connie Smith, the country music legend.
Love Johnny Cash.
And
Johnny gave him the finger at the White House when Nixon tried to bring him in to get the conservative vote. He said he wouldn't even show up.
Yeah, Johnny Cash wouldn't like what's going on now.
No, he'd speak out.
Yeah, I'm just going to stop the story here because this is just ridiculous.
But, folks, let's just make this real simple in case we have any conservatives listening. Okay?
Yeah, hopefully not.
We are for the wearing of masks, and we're maintaining based on record and scientific proof, it's the most effective way to protect people right now in this growing time of virus epidemic spread. Mm-hmm. That's our, I say our, talking about Southpaw's point of view. We're also in support of removing Confederate flags and removing Confederate generals and all racist statues across the country. We are in total support of that. And if it's not done, we urge people to allow it to happen and remove the blight from our country. Just, that's it. That in a nutshell, in the last half hour, that's the position of Southpaws. And I might add, that includes the Stone Mountain Monument. I don't know if you've ever been down around Atlanta, Georgia.
No,
that may be the epicenter of Confederate statue worship. It's a park. It's huge, carved into the side of a mountain. That needs to go. That needs to be cleaned out, wiped clean, gone. Alabama, Dale, your statue needs to go. Any remaining Columbus statues, who was a racist and enslaved the indigenous people of this country, needs to go, gone. I have no trouble. You want to take spray paint up to the top of the Sistine Chapel and wipe out the white middle-aged guy that represents God, that's fine with me. You go right ahead. I don't care how many billions of dollars it's worth, because it's killing people. Mm-hmm. It's a culture that was started in the bowels of Christianity, right in the Bible. That God was a white male. He was God. He was God. He was like a wise man with a beard up in the sky. It's ridiculous.
Yep.
And these white crackers and these Christian fundamentalists, they'll whine like pigs if you suggest tearing down the image of white Jesus.
Mm.
They couldn't even handle white Santa Claus on Fox News.
Yeah. Oh, it's a war
so
on Christmas.
I think that this cultural revolution is far beyond anything I ever thought would take place. Really. It's incredible. It's being met with the stupidest people out there trying to stop it. So just to be clear where we stand, we're for the ruination. I don't care if you blow it up, you pull it over with a chain, get it down, tear it down. We're for it.
Just make sure you go to our Facebook page and find that article from Popular Mechanics before you do that. How to pull down racist statues safely. It's beautiful.
Little service announcement from Southpaws.
Yeah, that article actually made Inside Edition earlier this week too.
Oh, did it really?
Yes, it did.
Well, they're a conservative magazine normally.
Well, they're run by CBS, so
are they?
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. They were more conservative when Bill O'Reilly, Bill the Clown, was their host there. You know, I haven't played that audio in a while. I should dig that up. I'll write it and we'll do it live.
All right.
I haven't played that clip in forever. I really need to dig that out. One thing that I do want to mention here real quick, we're going to talk about the U.S. Attorney for Manhattan forced out of office. This is Jeffrey Berman. First, there was the announcement from Bill Barr, Jeffrey Berman is leaving his office. And Berman responded, "No, I'm not." Says, you better fire me then, and it better be Trump, not you, Bill Barr. You don't have the right, he does. So then it finally got settled, whatever, I don't know. But I want to read this. This is an opinion piece for Business Insider. This is wrote by John Liebman and Dan Nardello. Now, who are those two folks? Well, John Liebman is the chairman and CEO of Brillstein Entertainment Partners, Hollywood's premier talent management production company. Dan Nardello is the chairman and CEO of Nardello & Company, an international investigative firm. Both of those men are former federal prosecutors for the Southern District of New York. Here's what they have to say about Bill Barr firing an attorney, and this was published on Thursday. An insidious attack on justice in America is being led by the President and the Attorney General of the United States. As former federal prosecutors, it is remarkable for us to have to recognize that this assault is being headed up by Donald Trump and his Attorney General William Barr. Barr served honorably during his first stint as AG during the George H.W. Bush administration, but has recently become the poster boy for the corrosive effect to one's moral compass engendered by proximity to Trump. The pair have recently launched a frontal attack on the U.S.'s preeminent prosecutor's office, and this act warrants unequivocal condemnation and immediate congressional review. Over the weekend, Trump and Barr fired Jeffrey Berman, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, where we both served. In recent years, the SDNY has prosecuted Trump's lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen, in the course of that prosecution listing Trump as an unindicted criminal co-conspirator, and under Berman, the office is reportedly investigating other close Trump associates, including our former boss, Rudy Giuliani. The SDNY's storied history of fierce independence has placed it squarely within Trump and Barr's sights, but Berman's firing also comes on the heels of a number of other assaults on independent justice by the president. Among other things, Trump has recently fired 4 inspector generals whose jobs were to function as watchdogs to combat fraud and abuse in major cabinet departments. He has pressured foreign governments to investigate political opponents, has personally lobbied for individuals to be prosecuted by his Justice Department, and threatened to reveal the identity of whistleblowers who have alleged impropriety by him and his administration. These moves against the justice system, along with his recent attempt to co-opt the U.S. military, which, like the SDNY, prizes its apolitical tradition, amounts to a naked attempt to remove any obstacles to his corrupt personal and political agenda. It is true the U.S. attorneys serve at the pleasure of the president, and replacing one is not in itself improper. However, here the circumstances of Berman's sudden ouster raise serious questions about corrupt motives. Before he was fired, Barr falsely claimed that Berman had resigned. Second, Barr initially announced he was going to appoint a prosecutor from another office as Berman's interim replacement, a highly unusual move that he has since had to walk back, appointing Audrey Strauss, Berman's experienced deputy, to the position. Berman stepped aside, saying that Barr finally followed, quote, the normal operation of law, end of quote. Further, Barr and Trump announced their intention to replace Berman with Jay Clayton, the current chairman of the Securities Exchange Commission. While Clayton is one of the few Trump appointees who has acquitted himself with dignity and is credited with real competence in his area of expertise, he is a corporate lawyer with no prosecutorial or even litigation experience.
Wow.
Given that lack of relevant experience, Clayton's appointment would be a betrayal of the SDNY's long tradition of being helmed by alumni with serious prosecutorial know-how, a fact acknowledged by none other than GOP Senator Lindsey Graham, Trump's enabler-in-chief, who said he would give traditional veto power over Clayton's appointment to New York's 2 Democratic senators. Trump and Barr's actions seem to be designed to chill ongoing investigations that they may find politically inconvenient and likely to hurt Trump's chances for a second term. The Southern District, which has jurisdiction over Wall Street, has prided itself on not only being apolitical, but fearlessly so. For example, when we served, one of our colleagues was trying a corrupt congressman on a bribery charge. The defense argued that the bribe was unnecessary because the defendant could have called upon none other than then Attorney General Ed Meese for help in securing the contracts at issue. In rebuttal, our colleague had no compunction in calling Meese a sleaze with Giuliani's approval. It is that sort of independence and freedom from political influence that Trump and Barr seem determined to circumscribe. The assault against the SDNY is but the most recent example of an all-out assault on the norms that have governed the comportment of government institutions throughout both Republican and Democratic administrations. While the firing of Berman has triggered condemnation from former prosecutors and triggered an investigation by the House Judiciary Committee, more must be done to push back on Trump and Barr's assault on the country's justice system. If this assault is not decisively repelled now, there is no telling where it may take us.
That's true. That's very true.
Very powerful.
It is. Yeah, it's alarming.
Oh, man. Well, I tell you what, can we lighten the mood just a quick minute before we get into our Hammer Time segment? If
you can do it, I'm all for it.
Well, I have this story. This came up right before we came to air, and this is from Barton Dieters at Wood Television. This is a local political story. Listen to this, Jack. A Michigan House of Representatives candidate is getting a lot of attention in the state and across the country, but it's not his campaign that's generating buzz. Rather, it's the plea from his own children asking people not to vote for him. 52-year-old Robert Regan is making his third attempt at winning the 73rd district seat to represent northern Kent County in the state house. He is proudly conservative, opposes the policies of Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer, believes Black Lives Matter is destructive, and Antifa exists as an organization, and he was among a handful of people burning their absentee ballot applications at a demonstration 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
Yeah, he was in that group that was down at, where was it,
We
Culver?
know some of the knuckleheads that are in that group.
Unfortunately, yes. We don't associate with them anymore, at least I don't.
I don't as well, but this is an extreme conservative. This is a real nut job.
Mm-hmm. Let me continue. He also wants Michigan to make English its official language, and he opposes easing immigration restrictions. Quote, I was asked to lead the West Michigan Trump Republican convoy to Lansing on April 15th just to push back against the governor, end of quote.
Yeah.
His campaign on social media extols his commitment to family with pictures of his 3 daughters and a son. But his daughters
family think he's crazy. One of those daughters.
His daughters his daughters are not supportive of that campaign. Regan said, quote, my daughters Stephanie and Natalie both sent out tweets, and I think it said something to the effect of, for the love of God, don't vote for my dad, end of quote. Yeah, I've got
something like that. Exactly like that.
I've got the exact one here. This is Stephanie Regan on Twitter, June 23rd. Quote, if you're in Michigan and 18 plus, please, for the love of God, do not vote for my dad for state rep. Tell everyone. End of quote.
Now, that's a family value. I'll go with that one.
Yeah. Wonder where she got that thought from. Well, her dad has an idea. We'll get to that in just a second here.
Crazy liberal education.
Robert Regan said, quote, this tweet is now up to almost 200,000 likes and 32,000 retweets. This whole thing has absolutely gone viral. I've had newspapers in D.C. contact me. MIRS News Group in Lansing also contacted him as well, apparently. Continuing the story, he said he has heard from some nationally known political news sources and some conservative talk shows. Regan said, quote, did it hurt me seeing that tweet? Of course it did. I'm the father. I'm human. You feel things like that. But one of the things I did with my children, all 4 of them, I said always focus on the truth. I'm really excited that they thought they had a solid enough relationship with me where they could diss me on social media and know that I'm not going to disown them. End of quote.
They did more than diss you there, Reagan. What they did is they completely warned people of your policies and your thinking. You're an a-hole. You're not a good father. A good father wouldn't allow that kind of racism and that kind of hatred into your children's minds.
Yep.
People can't hang on to this idea of, well, you got your political opinion, I got my political. No, your political opinion is racist. Your political opinion will lead people to die from the virus that has already to the tune of hundreds of thousands. Your political opinion is corrosive. And so we don't any longer go with that. We are, I hate this saying, I hate it. We're going to agree to disagree. You can't pull that here. You can't say, well, we got a disagreement with my daughters. They're right and you're wrong. That's the issue.
It certainly is. Let me continue.
Don't hide behind the fact that they feel comfortable to speak their discontent with their father. Nah, that ain't going to work either. You're wrong. You're wrong in the policies, dangerously so. And your daughters have enough courage to stand up and warn the public of the consequences of you being elected. Mm-hmm. That's startling. It's humorous, but it's startling that it's that bad and that they recognize it.
Let me continue real quick here. He said he is proud they are speaking their minds and standing up for what they believe in. But he added this, quote, then when they go off to college, quite frankly, they get involved with these Marxist socialist universities and they start getting indoctrinated with things that are completely polar opposite from where you raised them. End of quote.
Where does this dinosaur live? Around Grand Rapids?
Yeah, 73rd District, Northern Kent County.
Well, they need a new dinosaur park. They used to have one down at Covert, Michigan. Or somewhere down Southwest.
Like the movie Tommy Boy. Oh, look, prehistoric forest.
Yeah, that's right. Just send it here to Kent County. Put him at the gate, taking tickets.
By the way, Regan was divorced in 2014. His 20-year-old and 22-year-old daughters live in Utah and Arizona, respectively.
No surprise.
They got the hell out of Dodge, and I don't blame them. Oh, well, I tell you what, now that we've lightened the mood, let's go ahead and go to our next segment.
Stop! Hammer time!
Yeah, it's hammer time. It's time to drop the hammer on the douchebag of the week, and this guy is a previous winner of the award, Texas Representative Louie Gohmert. We've had to talk about him before. He is a crowning jerk.
He is.
Well, he decided to do it again this week. I've got the audio of this. This runs about 4 minutes, 50 seconds. We're going to play it in its entirety just so you can get the effect of this. But what happened was there was a House Judiciary Committee meeting where they had called former Deputy Attorney General Donald Ayer to testify. And Chairman Jerry Nadler, Democrat of New York, gave Ayer extra time to finish his opening statements. And Louie Gohmert didn't like that a whole lot. And so he decided to do his own little protest.
You remember Gomer Pyle?
Yeah.
Well, now we have a Pyle from Gomer.
Oh, God. Let me play the audio.
Is a textbook violation of Justice Manual Rule 1-7.400, which bars public comment on criminal investigations before charges are filed. Here, though, the wrong is much worse, as Barr is using a criminal investigation to produce fodder for the president's campaign propaganda mill, which can have its effect even though it is false. This conduct in particular gives cause for great concern about what Barr may do next. Just another 30 seconds. In closing, it needs to be said that Bill Barr does regularly lie in ways that impact official action. Along with his continuing media project to make Americans believe that the FBI conspired against Donald Trump, his statements about the Mueller report, Jeffrey Berman's supposed resignation, and Barr's own role in the events in Lafayette Park come quickly to mind. So does his practice of regularly shrouding himself in the rhetoric and trappings of the rule of law, even as he desecrates and undermines the institutions that make it possible. But to me, Barr's crowning dishonesty is the portrait of Edward Levy that a recent New York Times article showed hanging on the wall of his conference room, as though the current incumbent
Regular order. The witness will conclude.
Regular order is right.
We're way beyond regular order.
The witness will continue.
Can I have one more sentence here?
By all means.
Okay. But to me, Barr's crowning dishonesty is the portrait of Edward Levy that a
Mr.
recent
Chairman, I would
New York
ask
Times
that the sergeant at arms be called upon to stop the disruption of this meeting. I can't hear this witness. This is a very important witness.
Yeah, well, he's way beyond
the chair has
and if there are no rules about when people can talk, there's no rules about when you can make noise.
The gentleman makes a good point, and the chair will enforce the 5-minute rule. Witness will proceed.
The chair is not enforcing the 5-minute rule.
The witness will conclude.
Mr. Chairman, this is outrageous. Do you have no respect for the rules whatsoever?
The witness will conclude.
He's 2 minutes beyond concluding, and you don't let us have that kind of time. You gavel down immediately. You're being grossly unfair. This man had a written statement, and he knew to cut it to 5 minutes. He couldn't do it. Either we have rules or we don't.
The gentleman will suspend. The witness will conclude.
Thank you.
Well, then
in
we
closing,
can keep making
it needs
noise.
to be said that Bill Barr does regularly lie in ways that impact official action.
Mr. Chairman, there's not order in the room. There's a banging.
No, there's certainly not.
Mr. Chairman, would you have Gene Cooper removed?
The witness will conclude.
That's what you said a while ago, and he didn't conclude.
The gentleman will suspend. The witness will conclude.
So I guess the last thing I want to sum up with, I've said all the rest of this, but the last point I'd like to make is that I think his crowning dishonesty in the face of what he is doing to the Justice Department is the picture that I saw in the New York Times a few weeks ago, a portrait of Edward Levy on the wall of his conference room, as though the current incumbent has anything but disdain for the beliefs and achievements of his predecessor. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a parliamentary inquiry.
Gentleman will state his parliamentary inquiry.
Is it not appropriate for the chair to exercise discretion in extending the 5-minute rule as the chair sees fit?
It certainly is appropriate.
And is it authorized under the rules of this committee?
It certainly is authorized under the rules of this committee.
Well, then, cannot the chair call in the sergeant at arms to maintain order when a member of this panel is out of order and disrupts
We'll
the
move
meeting?
on to the next witness.
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Elias.
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Elias.
Parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Elias.
Parliamentary point of order, Mr. Chairman.
There is no point of order.
How do you know I've not said one? Here we go again.
The gentleman is completely out of order, Mr.
The
Chairman.
gentleman will state his point of order.
Point of order is according to the House rules, a House chairman cannot capriciously determine the 5-minute rule at the whim of what he wants. It has to be fairly and impartially applied. That is the period of the House rules, and that is not what has happened.
You'll apply it fairly?
We are applying the 5-minute rule as provided by the House rules.
Well, what do you think about that, Jack?
Disgusting. Sitting here angry.
I'm waiting for the day that somebody, maybe even Nadler himself, walks over to Louie Gohmert and punches him square in the mouth. There have been fistfights on the floors of government, parliaments in other countries. I don't think we've ever had that here, although we did have a duel once.
But we had a guy with a cane beat an anti-slave speaker almost to death on the floor in Washington.
Wow.
Just walked over with a cane and started beating on him.
Unbelievable. So for Louie Gohmert, for interrupting a House Judiciary Committee meeting by banging on the table, unnecessarily being a Republican asshole, we have this message for you.
Don't be a douchebag.
Yeah, that's right. Louie Gohmert needs to stop being a douchebag once and for all. And like I said, I hope Jerry Nadler punches him square in the mouth. He needs it. Bad.
Gohmert just went on the final list for douchebag of the year, in my opinion.
Yep, he certainly has. Yep.
No, that's disgusting. And, there's a lot of, I just had one other thing to add with disgust real quickly. A policeman in North Carolina was caught on his, I guess this would be like this phone you speak into, right? What do they call that? Your scanner, right?
Mm.
Saying he can't wait to slaughter black and with the label effing black people to another man. Mm. And this has become ubiquitous all across the United States. We are uncovering the underbelly of a systemic racist system called the police force in the United States. It's that simple. And to answer to that, they're resigning or they're threatening to resign. There was the immunity clause taken away in one state. This is a complete
Colorado
cleansing of the system that has been killing black people, which Kaepernick took a knee to try and stop. It's happening. It needs your help. You need to perpetuate it with your opinion and your talk to your relatives. Support any initiative to defund the police. This kind of murder has to stop, and it has to be elucidated to do that. And that's the process we're in right now.
Well, Jack, that's going to wrap things up for this week. We'll be back next week. I'm Darren Gibson.
I'm Jack Prince.
For our announcer, Kristen Cook, please support independent media and the First Amendment.
The stations that carry Southpaws do not necessarily share the opinions expressed on the show. Southpaws is protected by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution and is copyrighted by Big D Entertainment. All rights reserved.